Hi, welcome to Pocket Mentor's third Facebook Live session. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you're all safe and well. And just to introduce myself, my name's Robbie. I am a coach here at Pocket Mentor. And so we are here again this afternoon to impart some knowledge, which we think would be very helpful to everyone as we still are, on quarantine, and we're still trying to adapt to our totally new and challenging situation. And for our new viewers out there, this is Pocket Mentor is really a platform for purposeful learning. So you can expect to hear experts from various fields sharing their experiences and knowledge. And the hope and intention is so that you may learn from them and find yourselves inspired, learned and fulfilled. So coming from last week, we had a live feed. Well, actually, last Wednesday. I'm sorry. Last Wednesday, we had a live session where the discussion was really about how to maintain your relationships. I mean, your key relationships and protecting your own mental health. So we now move into something a bit more specific, which is that of managing your anxiety, especially in this time of quarantine. So, given all the uncertainties during this time, I think everyone can relate to feeling anxious, right? And so, here to explain more about that are two psychologists from the Ateneo Bulatao Center for Psychological Services. Now, just a little bit of background on the Ateneo Bulatao Center. It is the service and research arm of Ateneo de Manila. And they provide counseling, therapy, assessment, training and workshops, and research services. They are committed to promoting psychological wellness across a variety of settings, such as schools, government, organizations, non-government, and corporations. So our two speakers, our two psychologists are Miss Sophia Grace Lina and Lori Mesa. Just to also give you a background about our two speakers or our two guests here in Pocket Mentor today. Sophia, or Pia as her friends call her, is the Director for Public Workshops and Practitioner Development. She is a counseling psychologist who works with children, adolescents, and young adults, while Lori is the Director for Research, who is a developmental psychologist and a staunch advocate of mental health. So, everyone watching right now, please welcome Pia and Lori to Pocket Mentor. And thank you so much for being with us here this afternoon.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie. All right. I think you started us off on really contextualizing where we are right now. Okay, because where we are right now is in a situation that I think it's fair to say none of us have been in before. And there's so many unknowns that are here for us right now. There's a lot of unknowns. What we know about this virus keeps changing like every day. So that gives us the feeling of, okay, what's next? What do we actually know about this? What are we sure about? And aside from that, the effects of this quarantine, unknowns about our financial stability, what's going to happen for work next week or next month, for the students out there, what's going to happen to school, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of uncertainty about when will actually end, or how it is actually going to end. And that's where we find ourselves. And Lori will tell us more about how this actually creates a situation that's very ripe for anxiety to come up.
That's true. So, given the entire uncertainty, one can reasonably expect that emotions of anxiety is really common. So, just to contextualize and define anxiety, when we talk about it here, means expression of fear of something that we do not understand. It's an expression of fear that we think and we perceive as something threatening to our safety and our survival. Okay. So it's actually a good emotion because it prompts us to think about the future. It allows us to predict threats, dangers, and problems. And as we bring ourselves to think and imagine future scenarios, be able to problem solve for it and plan for it. So if you think about it, the emotion of anxiety is probably something that's responsible for our evolution and our survival as a humanity. And our ancestors probably harnessed that emotion to predict the weather, know when to plant certain crops, etc. And that's why Dr. Barlow of the Center for Anxiety claims that anxiety is actually the shadow of intelligence.
Okay. So yeah, that means that this thing we're feeling, okay, we can look at it in this way, that it is neither good nor bad. Okay, it
Yes.
can be a healthy. We can express it in a healthy way, but then we can also express it in an unhealthy way. So, but first we want to talk about the healthy expression of this. What does it mean to be expressing this fear
Right.
healthily? Yeah.
So I think they're showing you the graph right now. And if you look at the middle, that's where we can find healthy expression of anxiety. And what does that look like? Being healthy means being aware of what is happening inside of you. So you are aware of the thoughts and the emotions that are happening inside of you. And even when that anxiety or stress or worry is present, you can regulate your responses so that the actions you do choose to engage in is something that's appropriate, adaptive. It's something that you actually need and what others need. Okay, so let me give you a specific example. Like, for instance, during this crisis, this COVID crisis, what would healthy anxiety look like? So, okay, so awareness of everything around you. So, perhaps that would mean like you're looking at the news and you are aware that the World Health Organization says that the best way to curb and flatten this pandemic is to quarantine ourselves for 1 month. So the choice, the action, even if there is anxiety, you choose to stay home. And what does healthy planning look like? Do I have enough food for 2 weeks? Can I lessen my grocery trips so that I reduce my exposure to other people? Planning for what special needs my family will I need to stock up on. So those are healthy responses to something that's anxiety provoking.
All right. But of course, it's normal at this time, okay, when you're worried about something, that's when you plan, right? You plan these things, you prepare. But this could also come with some rather unpleasant physical symptoms, okay? And I
Yes.
wonder if our audience has experienced some of this. And what we're saying now is this can also happen and be normal. You can feel when you're nervous, your heart rate increases. Okay,
Yes.
so you might feel your heart rate is particularly high at certain times when you think about when you're planning. You can be experiencing shortness of breath. Okay, when you're again like when you're nervous, you could be having difficulty sleeping. These are some, okay, of the physical symptoms of that go with this particular kind of fear or with this particular kind of worry. But there are varied expressions and behaviors of anxiety.
Yeah. So Pia's just giving us a rundown about the classic experience of anxiety. But yes, our experience of anxiety can definitely be unique and different from person to person. So the core of the experience of anxiety is that when sensations of feeling anxious come up, your body goes on high alert, and then you look for possible dangers. And when that one is activated, you activate your survival responses. So that would be fight, flight, and freeze responses. And our expression of fight, flight, and freeze will vary greatly. Okay, so here's where we want to talk about our experience of anxiety during this time, because I could safely say that this is a rather universal emotion right now. So, my experience that I could share would probably my own fight response. So, during the first week of quarantine, I remember lying in bed at 12 midnight, probably about 1:30 until 1:30 a.m. And I would have thoughts, grim thoughts about what the future will be like, whether we will have enough food. And so that is my body and my mind trying to think through worst case possible scenarios so that I could anticipate it, I could plan for it, etc. And so now that I have caught myself, oh, I notice, oh, I am feeling anxious. And then so I kind of talk myself through it that at this time, at 12 midnight, what I need to do is to sleep. The other planning can come when I have gotten sufficient amount of sleep. So how do I shift back? If you look at the chart, from falling into the dysfunctional, unhealthy fight flight patterns to shifting back to the just right, I am alert, I am aware about what I need. I kind of like loudly remind myself, like, oh, this is my survival mechanism activating. I'm probably like one of my ancestors who couldn't sleep well at night because they have to stay alert at night. I am on threat mode. So I will shift my attention to noticing my head on the pillow, the temperature of the air conditioning, etc., just to quiet my overthinking mind. For some people, the fight expression would be cleaning too much. Like I've heard of stories of people cleaning round the clock that they have developed allergies from inhaling bleach because they've just been cleaning too long.
All right. And for me, okay, especially in that first week, but okay, it's still going on until now. I noticed that for me, the expression of anxiety really comes in. I have a lot of like fight, okay, because not only is this, it's not just the anxiety about the health threat. There's also, you know, the socioeconomic effects. And I'm watching the news, I'm looking at Facebook, I'm trying to keep informed, and I can feel really my worry and my concern about what's happening, out there in the world, because I'm here, I'm alone. Like, and I can feel like that. I guess it's kind of like aggression, okay, since we're talking about like primitive reactions. I could feel myself going caveman and getting really aggressive. I'm getting angry. I'm alone, and I've been catch myself muttering out loud to myself, literally growling at the computer because I'm so angry. Okay. And but when that happens, I do the same thing that Laurie does. I actually, as it happens, I allow myself to say, basically, oh my God, I'm so angry. I allow myself to growl and to really feel that this is how angry I am. Okay. But then what I do is I just try to monitor the intensity of that anger and the duration of that anger, because I know, well, because I've learned this, I know that if I stay too long in that anger at a really high intensity, all that's going to happen to me is I'm going to burn out. I'm going to get really tired, and I'm going to get to a point where I'm numb and apathetic. And I don't want that to happen, because this anger that I feel, much like our ancestors, has a purpose. And the purpose of it is for me to learn to defend myself, to defend the people around me, my neighbors, So what I try to do is, when I feel like it's too much, like the intensity, I stayed there and I felt it, and I'm feeling it for too long. And how do I know? When I know I'm feeling it and I've been there for too long, when I start to feel that kind of hopelessness kind of creep in. And that's my signal to be like, okay, no, I gotta step back.
Okay.
And that's where I shift. I try to do something else. I watch something funny. I watch, I clean the dishes, or I, do push-ups. I don't know, but I shift. I try to shift away from it. And that's how I try to balance out these feelings of anger. But then I also find myself also doing, going to the other side of the curve, going into a freeze mode. Now everybody knows how emotional I am, but I go into a freeze mode, and the freeze mode is quite the opposite. It's the opposite end. And this is the point where I start crying. Okay. And just, because to be frank, I have been watching my Facebook feed, and there are some people I know who have already lost loved ones. There are people I know who have been affected by this directly. So I allow myself to feel that sadness, and I allow myself to cry because it's sad. And, it's only human that I get saddened by this. So I allow myself moments. And to be honest, that first week, I allowed myself 2 days of this freeze situation where I was crying and I was binge watching Netflix and crying and watching and crying. But then I was also monitoring the same thing, the duration and the intensity of what I was feeling. So what I did after those 2 days was purposefully allow myself to feel it and let it out. But then when the 2 days passed, I was like, okay, now we have to shift. Let's go back to my routine, the work I have to do, the friends I can talk to, and trying my best to shift back to a kind of like a regular programming. But I could only do that because I acknowledged it and I evaluated it. And I let myself stay there for a certain period, but I also stepped out of it and allowed myself to shift to another activity, so that I don't stay there too long. Because staying there too long would be going into unhealthy territory.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess it's important to recognize where we are in that curve, right? Is it appropriate? Am I veering and falling into the fight flight, or am I in the freeze or play dead zone? So there are many examples of this. Others would be seniors wanting to go out. What is that? It's a fight. It's a fight, typical fight response, isn't it? Or probably play dead. It could probably be play dead because I don't want to pay attention to this crisis because it's too stressful. So I will just go about my usual way of doing things. It could be that. Maybe others feel compelled to share health advisories from non-reputable sources because it's an attempt to do something. So, what else?
Yeah, that could be like a fight response, just the needing to do something about it.
Right. Or I hear people just doing exercise and workout for long periods of the day to the point of exhaustion and burnout.
Which could be flight because they just do this thing instead of, it's an escape.
Right.
To do these other activities can be an escape. And I guess what we're saying here is that at some level, these actions could be healthy. It could be a nice thing if you shared health advisories. It could be a nice thing that you stay active and productive. But either going to the end of doing so much of it that you tire yourself out and you burn yourself out, or you do so little you don't do anything, or you ignore completely what's happening into the world, thus putting yourself in harm's way, and putting others in harm's way. And what we're saying here is the task that is given to us is to try to find the middle ground where we are alert, okay, meaning we know what's happening because it's true. We have to be aware. There is an actual real threat that is present. And this is why we're really saying that this is actually a healthy response. Because if we didn't feel anything, then we're not going to give an appropriate response to what's happening.
And it demands an urgent response from
so,
us.
So to be alert, okay, but not hyper alert, but not ignoring it. To be aware about what's happening, and to engage with it in adaptive ways, in situation appropriate ways.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe we could share with them what we do.
Okay. So there's some specific behaviors, and I acknowledge that what the behaviors we can talk about today may be very general, but this is something that we do ourselves. I do this really. And one really important one is acknowledgement and acceptance of emotions. So when I do feel that anger boiling, I name it. I say, okay, I am so angry. Anger is here. Okay. And I tell myself, it's okay to be angry at this point because there really is something that's there making me angry. So it's okay. I'm angry. Okay. But again, we don't want to stay there too long, because it's going to tire us out. So whether it's anger or sadness, which are my biggest emotions right now, I find myself doing this exercise called the calming breath. And it's something that really helps me just shift focus away from the anger and the sadness when it gets too much. And it's really just this really simple breathing exercise. And you can do it as many times as you want. I do it a lot through the day. And it's really just an exercise of breathing in normally and then extending the exhale. So I count to 7, 8, 10, actually, trying to make my exhale very long. And that just helps me, one, focus on something else other than my emotions, and two, allow my body to actually get out of that highly emotional state.
And yes, emotion. Okay. And emotions, there are no good and bad emotions. So, the emotion of anxiety, kaba, even emotions of anger that we usually think, oh, you shouldn't be feeling angry, or don't worry, you shouldn't feel scared, or mga common advice na huwag kang malulungkot, hindi pwedeng maging negative ngayon. Yes, those are actually emotions that we should acknowledge because those emotions are telling us something.
Yeah. Parang kung hindi natin pansinin, nawawala ba sila? Thing is, not really. Okay? Babalik at babalik yan. Yung galit mo, your sadness, your worry. So sometimes what's best is that we pay attention to it. What is my anger about? Like what I said earlier, yung galit ko dahil gusto kong protektahan sarili ko. Dahil gusto kong protektahan yung pamilya ko. Dahil gusto kong safe yung community ko. So may saysay, there's a reason for that anger. Why am I sad? I'm sad because this is a really horrible thing that happened to my friend's mom, So parang it's normal that these feelings are here even if they're not nice feelings. And to say na parang, dapat positive lang lagi, that's actually something that's unhealthy for us because normal lang, di ba? Tao lang tayo, kaya normal lang malungkot kasi malungkot yung nangyayari. And so acknowledging that, yung ina-admit natin na alam natin na napanghahawakan natin yung mga nararamdaman natin na yun. Saying that it's normal, that it's okay. That's very important. Actually, that's a very important step one that we would like to encourage other people to do. And I know we're saying acknowledge and then shift, acknowledge and then shift, di ba? Parang try to do shift to another activity, don't stay there too long, wag tayong magbabad ng sobra.
Or
But
shift to the middle.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Pero we're also saying that this action of being in the middle and being balanced is not easy. Okay, it takes a lot of practice to be able to do that. So it's normal for us to go through this sequence. Maybe one day, part of the day, you're crying, and then you go back to, okay, normal na. Let's go back. Let's do work. Let's whatever we're supposed to do. And then the next part of the day, you're overthinking and you're panicking and your heart rate is, kinakabahan ka. Tapos nun, babalik ka, normal na. Okay, back to work. Okay. And then, so, paikot-ikot tayo dito. Dito sa yung finlash namin kanina.
Yeah.
And that's normal.
Yes.
And that's okay.
And I think we can expect that during this entire quarantine or this entire crisis that we are experiencing. We will probably have more moments of being outside the middle of that graph, being outside that fight, flight, freeze responses. And it's okay because we can shift back if we choose to.
Okay. All right. So I guess what we're saying is that
being healthy means even if there is an emotion of anxiety you are feeling, if there is sadness, if there's even anger, you can choose your behavior and do what you need to do anyway. Kaya mo pa rin gawin kung ano yung kailangan mong gawin nang hindi ka nadadala nitong mga matitinding emosyon na to.
all right. Okay.
So, yes, anxiety is actually a very useful emotion. But there's also something about anxiety that we want to point out. It kind of narrows our perspective kasi we go into this survivalist mentality. We go into threat mode. And when we go into threat mode, the way we think of things now becomes me against another. Ako, kalaban ko yung isa. Mauubusan ako. So, if we adopt that sort of survivalist thinking, we end up alienating other people or even hurting other people in the process. Also, anxiety tends for us to cling on to the old ways we used to do things. That it's so hard for us to think about different ways we can do things. So we get stuck. But another way, I guess, we can go beyond the crippling tendency and the narrowing tendency of anxiety is to tap into useful emotions or useful ways of thinking. One that is more expansive and inclusive of other people. Maybe even as we experience anxiety, we could bring in a sense of compassion, right? Na this is going to be rough for everyone. Medyo mahirap talaga tong panahon na to. And we are all bound to experience anxiety in the many ways that we manifest it, in the many ways that we express it. Some people get overly masungit than usual, that because that is their fight response. Some people may be unproductive. Your coworkers may be unproductive and work from home is not doing great for them. So it's okay. That's expected. Meet it with compassion.
And that compassion is also something that I guess we're really inviting you and ourselves to give to ourselves too, because this is not an easy time. We're all confused and worried and scared. So self-compassion at this point is to be able to tell yourself, hey, it's okay. It's okay that you're scared. It's okay that right now you're really unproductive. It's okay that you can't do all the things that you used to be able to do. It's okay. You can be here now It's okay if you're not doing everything. Okay? Um, this, to be able to tell yourself this, is self-compassion. That if you're trying these things we're talking about and you're failing, you can also tell yourself it's okay, you're trying. Yeah.
And another thing we could probably bring in is, with anxiety, is to bring in a sense of creating things, to bring in creativity. Because reality, we talked about the whole uncertainty that we are facing. There is no map, there is no guidebook or book for dummies for pandemic. We don't have that right now. So there is no clear way forward. It's like we're driving through pitch darkness and we just could see a few feet in front of us. So this could also be an opportunity for us to be creative, because now we have the chance to chart our way forward because everything is new.
Okay. All right. And then finally, and this is actually something I told one of my clients the other day, one of my clients who has like clinical anxiety even before all of this. I told her that because she was experiencing anxiety, she was feeling guilt that she couldn't do. She felt like the things that she was doing was not enough. And it was really making her upset. And I told her, I gave her this, I was very frank with her, actually. I was very real with her. And I said, of course, you are feeling like your efforts are so small. Because the thing is, this thing we're all facing is huge. It's not just here. It's the entire world right now. And like, when we think about it that way, this monster is so huge. How can my contribution mean anything in this world right now? And that's something scary. But then I said, it's true. If you only think of yourself in your contribution, it's an impossible task for you to think that what you can do as an individual is going to affect that huge monster that you're facing. And so that's why it's normal that you feel that way. But thing is, you're not the only one here. You if you think of yourself, you're a single cell in the face of this huge monster, but you're a cell that's a part of a hand. And you're a hand that's part of a body. And hopefully that body is the body of a hero. And you're part of the hand that holds the sword that will eventually slay that monster. So it's good right now to remember that we cannot expect us to be the saviors as individuals in this weird monster battle. But if we remember that it's not just us, we're not the only ones donating. We're not the only ones trying to gather PPEs. We're not the only ones who are trying to help our neighbors. If all of us do that, then it's going to be this big collective effort. Even the act of staying at home, you're gonna think, baka iniisip mo na parang wala naman akong ginagawa. Look, you're staying at home. That's your contribution. And if many of us stay at home and try to minimize our activity in this way, that's our contribution. That's your contribution as that little cell, as part of that body that's trying to fight that monster. So we have to remember that it's not just our effort. It is a collective effort. And maybe that way we can see that it's okay to feel this, to feel small, but to remember that we are part of this bigger whole. And the action of this bigger whole is what is going to eventually, hopefully, defeat that monster.
Thank you. So just to tie this small talk. So here's the reality. So the threat of this virus is really very real. And yes, we don't know a lot. So it's kind of even hard to figure out where to begin. But here's a comforting thing. So humanity has faced other challenging and unfamiliar threats too in the past. But it has done well by harnessing this emotion called anxiety. And with that anxiety, our ancestors were actually able to chart a way forward because they embraced this reasonable amount of anxiety. And so let us allow this reasonable amount of anxiety to remind us that this is indeed urgent. And if we're going to choose among all the many things that we have to do, this should be the first and foremost thing that we plan for, we solve for, we worry about. And we will need all of humanity's talents and skills to bring us out of this crisis and create and chart this new way forward like our ancestors did. And that we should include with this anxiety these emotions of compassion, creativity, and collective effort, because the reality also is that we are all in this together. Thank you.
All right. So, okay. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We have a few questions from our audience. Okay. I wanted to here's one, Lori. This
Okay.
one, okay. I'll just read it out. Okay.
Okay.
So someone said that during this pandemic, okay, I'm away from my family, so it adds to my anxiety. Sometimes I overthink a lot to the point that I'm being nega already. How can I manage it for now? So being alone, being away from family, and overthinking.
So acknowledging, again, emotions of loneliness, yearning for other people, then probably in how many ways can you think of connecting with other people or connecting with the people you want to be with?
Okay. Another thing also, maybe you've heard about this because I see it a lot actually on social media. When we have a lot of space and time, sometimes that's when yun yung panahon talaga na yung utak natin tatakbo lang ng tatakbo. Tapos yung takbo lang siya ng takbo, meron tendency na maging nega. Hindi lang siya nega na parang stable nega. No, it will get worse and worse and worse. And that's precisely what anxiety is. So one suggestion that I always give myself and my clients is to make sure that your days, that you have a schedule, that you are still doing something. And even if it's normal things, as in like schedule mo na maliligo ka, schedule mo na magbibihis ka or maglilinis ka, but not to pack, like make it super packed na wala ka ng downtime. So we're trying to have a balance where you are doing things, okay, but you're not extremely pressured to be productive because that could also like increase your anxiety. But at least that allows you time and space to shift to something present.
Right.
Yeah.
And make connecting with other people also purposeful. Like if you have that schedule, you will also not be disappointed if that person is not available, right? Because you have agreed on a certain time and a certain online platform by which to connect.
Okay. All right. And this one goes out also to the people asking for practical tips for cabin fever, lalo na yung mga mag-isa. Having a schedule, like still planning what you're going to do in a day.
Right.
That's something that will keep, because we're used to having structure.
Right.
Diba? Usually meron tayong structure. We go to work, we go to school, and that's the structure. You go out, you go in. And suddenly, all of us, you lost that structure.
Right.
But now what we can do is to put a little bit of structure back into our lives by setting up these normal, it doesn't even have to be special. I like to call them your mundane, everyday things. But recognizing na yun yung gagawin ko today.
You know what, Pia? I thought about this, that probably athletes or busy people would probably have it harder because their schedules are packed. And there's just a lot to do, like until 8 p.m., 9 p.m. They're still doing something. So I guess this is a lot of energy that they're used to expending so much on a regular day. And then suddenly they're left with all that shored up energy with nothing to do. So probably one way that could help with cabin fever or that sense of wanting to do something is to work out, like really physically expend energy or do some challenging stuff, challenging tasks, enroll in a course. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. So parang not just binge watching, not just
Yes.
reading, okay?
Yes.
Not just talking to friends, but actually physical activity is something that also really helps regulate the body. So it could be that you can't sleep because suddenly you don't have a lot of physical activity. Yeah. So putting the physical activity back helps to parang make sure your body goes back to its equilibrium.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think this one answers a few more, people who are asking about how to deal with anxiety because of lower social interaction. Reach out. Parang hindi na uso magtawag, to actually be on the phone. But if you don't have internet, okay, be on the phone. And I know that sounds like, but not everybody, what if I don't have load, ganyan. So parang you can structure that too, na parang hindi all the time, pero lalagyan mo, importante siya. So kung once a week pwede, edi once a week.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Another one, and here this sounds, thank you for being so frank and honest. Someone said the feeling of anger is very strong in relation to the situation of helplessness in the political system. It's just frustrating. So this is about frustration and anger and moments where this Bambi felt so much emotions that her tears just started to flow. And she's asking, is this normal? And what we're saying
definitely.
is, yes, this is very normal. It's normal for us to feel these strong emotions. And it's normal to want to express them. So parang hindi natin kailangan pigilan yung iyak. In fact, go ahead. Kung i-repress mo yan, mas lalong bibigat. So just, like that's something I do. I cry. I cry, but I just try to make sure that I don't stay there too long.
Yes.
That I do like, okay, pagka ano na, I try to shift and do something else. And for me, personally, I try to do something physical because a physical activity is easier to shift to that because I find it easier, but it can be something else for you.
Right. Or find a friend who can accept your emotions and just allow you to be. Some people can't handle it. So find people who can be with you as you experience those raw emotions.
Okay. There are a few people asking about panic attacks and difficulty breathing. So these particular symptoms of anxiety. Okay. I guess this is a good time to talk about particular exercises that we can do. Okay. So we'll give two. Okay, Laurie, I'll talk about the breathing and you talk about the alternatives. Okay. Because sometimes the breathing exercises don't work. Particularly if, di ba parang kung shortness of breath na nga, minsan mas nakakapanik pa yung breath. Mm-hmm. But for some, it works. So you can just, let's try. So the calming breath is an easy go-to way for you to focus on something else rather than the thought that's making you anxious. Okay. And it's really like this. It's also something that there's research behind the whole fact that when you do this, it actually makes your body go from a really high stress state, okay, to a lower stress state.
And it technically switches off the fight, flight, freeze response.
Yeah. So you can do this. Okay. And if you're watching, you can try because it's just really easy. Okay. It's taking a normal breath in and then taking a very slow exhale. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then sometimes what I try to do is I try to pretend that I'm blowing the air out through a straw, and that helps me extend my exhale. So shall we do it again? Okay, so breathing in normally and breathing out. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And just doing this several times, maybe 3 to 5, honestly, until you feel a little more relaxed. Just doing that, just breathing in this way really helps our body get out of that high stress state.
Okay.
So that's one way. That's called the calming breath.
Okay. Here's another way. Some people find it difficult to focus on the breath. So this is something that's done in dialectical behavior therapy, which is to notice through your five senses. Like, see, the root of all the panic attack is usually triggered by rumination, overthinking, really. So the key is to stop yourself from your thoughts flying one after the other. So it's good to ground on the body. And what do I mean by that? So maybe just notice 5 blue things that you see in your room. Or so with your sense of sight, you do that. Or 4 things that you can detect with your sense of hearing. 3 things, or maybe, I don't know how many you want, but things that you can smell. 5 things that you can detect with your sense of smell. Or maybe you could savor 1 square of a chocolate bar, or feel the texture of your teddy bear or a blanket, how light it is, the texture against your skin, the temperature, etc. And if you ground on the body, you'll soon notice that it's so hard to notice your body and at the same time have an active ruminating mind.
Okay. And these exercises, yung mga iba-ibang klaseng pagpansin. Okay? So ginagamit natin yung our different senses and really paying attention to it, really using it. And it's a way for us to ground, to step back, right? To shift from either that high fight state or that really low freeze state. It's something that helps us be in the middle. And for the people asking about, handling the feelings while you're in intense isolation, handling feelings of loss of control, you can also do this. Because sometimes these feelings of like loss of control, you can go ahead. Our default is to keep thinking about ways to solve the problem. How can I gain more control? How can I do something about it? What can I do? What can this person do? What can that person do? But the tendency is to go into speculation, meaning hindi naman tayo sigurado, pero we're trying to solve problems that are uncertain. Or sometimes, it's good to admit that are not in our control. And the more we think about it and there's no answer, the worse we will feel. So we're not saying that, we don't plan anymore and don't think about the problem. That's not what we're saying. We just want to be able to pull back from that unhealthy state of just speculating and speculating and speculating. Because it's all just guesses after a certain point. Hindi na siya planning.
Right.
Parang,
but I think that's one thing that's important to note. If it's something that you can't handle or something that you cannot bring yourself to regulate yourself, ask for help.
Yeah. Okay.
Ask professionals for help.
Yeah. And that was another question. Okay. So you can use these exercises by yourself. And, to all the people out there na parang, do I talk to myself? Yes, you can. It's perfectly okay. It will help you to talk to yourself in this way at this time.
Yes,
so
self-talk.
That's okay.
Yeah, coaching yourself.
Yeah. But for the people who are asking, for example, there are people who are asking about, depression. Like, am I depressed? How do I know if I'm depressed? There are people who are asking, if you're a PUI, how do you manage your anxiety? If you feel that these things, that if you try these things that we're suggesting, but you're noticing na parang, no, it's really, I can't, it's too heavy, it's too much. Or if, particularly if you're a PUI, that's a different anxiety. That's a really heavy anxiety. We do encourage you. There are so many free online avenues for psychological first aid. Our center offers free psychological first aid for frontliners and PUIs. Reach out, right? Reach out, because there is help to be had out there. So that option is also there. And if you're feeling it's too heavy, you can do that.
Right. Another thing that we could do as sort of a pulse check to see whether we're okay is, are you getting sleep every night? Are you eating adequately? Are you able to freely engage in healthy relationships, etc.? So those are good markers.
Okay. Yeah. But also we were saying that if you feel any of this at this point in our history, it's actually quite normal.
Yes,
okay? It's normal. So you don't have to panic if, oh God, I can't sleep. It's like, actually that's normal at this time.
Yes, at this time.
Yeah. But yeah, if you're really wondering if it is too much or too little and you can't answer that for yourself, go ahead. Try the various services that are offered online, because your mental health is very important. Because the truth is, and like we've been saying, we're not trying to fear monger. We're just really trying to keep it real. Like we're if you noticed, we're really trying to avoid that kind of false positivity or false optimism. We're trying to keep it real. So there is a big possibility that this is something that will persist. Hindi pa siya baka kailangan pa natin manatili dito ng mas matagal. So keeping ourselves mentally healthy as much as we can, learning to step back, okay, and rest from these intense emotions.
Yes, recovery, restoring, because we have a lot to do.
Yeah, we have to maintain our stamina. So whether it's sadness, okay, or anger or worry, that is the intense emotion, and we keep saying these intense emotions are okay, but if we stay there too long, our mental health will really deteriorate. So it's important to really be able to practice or try stepping into that emotion and then stepping back, and then stepping into it again and stepping back, because that's the way we prevent burnout. Diba? Who'd have thought burnout, diba, parang that just happens when you work too much? No, even if you're alone, you can burn out. Okay. All right. We have a few more questions. Oh, we have
one more.
Time for one more question.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. There are a few people asking about what about if you're in an environment that's particularly toxic for you. Okay. And I think this is an important question. Actually, I think, we will try to answer this question a little bit now, but we have another session next week on Wednesday. Let me get back to you at the same time, right?
I think, yeah.
So next week on Wednesday, we will be talking about more techniques. So more specific techniques. We can be here, we'll demonstrate them, and we'll practice with you. But
It's going
yeah,
to be a mindfulness session.
it's a mindfulness session.
Yeah.
So for the people out there who are in environments where they may feel unsafe, okay, and they may feel like it's, there's so many triggers and it's toxic for them. Well, the few steps that we talked about today would still be helpful. Okay? One would be to acknowledge and accept, because we may have a tendency to just say, no, it's okay, I'm okay. Okay, so step one is really to say, all right, hard as it is to say, to be able to just admit to yourself and hold to yourself that I am not okay right now. I do not like these people. I am hurt. I am sad. Okay, that is step one. Step two is to, even in a little way, even if it's just, a little corner of that space, okay, to identify where it is that you feel the safest, okay, even if it's not completely. It is just, this is where I am most relaxed comparatively. This is where I can have some time to breathe, okay. This is where I can have some time to myself. This is where I can rest, even if it's just comparatively. Okay? We're not aiming for perfect. Hindi kailangan 100% working. So to find that space wherever you are, whether it's your house, even if it's just, okay, I have a few minutes in the bathroom, literally, to find that space where you can have a breather. This is important, and to give yourself that space.
Of course, if it's the issue of physical safety, then
yeah,
please get yourself out of that situation.
My next one is reach out. Okay, there are hotlines. Maybe after this we can post some of it on some social media, okay, or search. Okay, there are places where you can reach out. Okay, there are people to call. Again, for anybody who's experiencing something like this, you could go. You that is a legitimate need for psychological first aid. So you could reach out, and talking to somebody more specifically about what you're going through is something that could be very helpful and really important. So don't be shy. Don't try to minimize what you're going through. That's why acknowledging is really the most important step one. Acknowledge that things are not okay, and then take that first, see if you can manage it yourself, but if not, also admit it, and then go reach out, and then maybe talking about it in more specific detail with a professional is, more steps will come after that. Okay, and so I think that's it for today's session. Perhaps we'll just try to wrap it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, the whole thing, the next few weeks, the next few days, we will continually be challenged and continually experience anxiety, right? So the important thing, as we keep saying every now and then, is to notice what is your unique experience. So that's even part of that skill building, being able to identify what your unique way of expressing that anxiety is. And the next step is to assess, is this healthy? Is this something that's needed in this situation? Is my expression of anxiety hurting others or hurting myself? And so, how can I recalibrate, modulate into a healthier way of going about it? But it first begins with self awareness.
Okay. So hopefully we were able to contribute something, okay, that can help you be help you manage these emotions that you're feeling at this time. And we'd like to thank Pocket Mentor for inviting us over to be able to share this with everyone. So again, we're from the Ateneo Bulatao Center. You can go over to our page to see some of the services that we just mentioned, because we do offer that.
Our online services are open.
Yeah. And so with that, I guess, see you next week.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All right.